I had barely finished rinsing my hands at the outdoor spigot when she marched up with her little army clutching a fat ring of so-called master keys like she was a sheriff. She went straight for my private lockbox jamming keys that didn't fit scratching paint off my gate, and when I told her to stop, she spun on me like I was the criminal. Within minutes, she was screaming about community safety and dialing 911 to report me for blocking her from breaking into my own property. That's how far my HOA president was willing to go just because I said no. My name's Jordan Blake. I live on a small farm at the edge of Meadow Brook next to a neighborhood that's under one of those homeowners associations. I'd dealt with their silly rules before grass-length mailbox paint, but nothing like this. The HOA president, Linda Carter, was infamous in the neighborhood. She'd only been here 3 years, but acted like she'd been crowned queen. Always barking about regulations, always sniffing around people's yards. Still, I never thought she'd storm my gate with a maintenance crew in tow, acting like she had authority over my land. That afternoon, the sun was low shadows stretching across the gravel when I noticed Rick Stone from maintenance carrying a spray can. Linda announced loud and proud that she needed emergency access for fire inspections. Then, she lifted that jangling ring of keys like it was a badge and went right for my lockbox. I tried to stay calm. "Ma'am, that's my personal security system. You don't have the right." She ignored me, shoving keys and twisting, scratching. Paint flakes fell like confetti. My heart started pounding. I pulled out my phone and hit record. Something told me she was about to go off the rails. Sure enough, when I told her to stop, she screamed that I was obstructing community safety and called the cops right there. I couldn't believe it. She stood on my gravel drive, clutching useless keys, reporting me as if I was endangering the whole neighborhood. The cops rolled up 2 officers, Martinez and Johnson. Linda rushed to them, pointing at my lockbox like she'd caught me hiding bodies in it. But the sign, bolted right above it, said "Private Property" in giant black letters. When they asked for my deed, I showed it. They traced the property lines with their fingers and told her flat out HOA authority stops at the boundary line. Without an easement or court order, she had no right to be there. Linda's face drained from red to pale. But as she left, she hissed, "This isn't over, Jordan." The way she said it chilled me, and she was right, it wasn't. I couldn't shake the doubt. Maybe she knew something I didn't. HOA rules are a labyrinth, and I worried there was some hidden clause that really did give her power. 2 days later, my fear seemed justified. I found an official-looking notice taped to my door declaring mandatory cooperation for vegetation clearance inspections. It sounded legal enough to make me question myself again. Could she be right? Was I, the stubborn fool, risking insurance for the whole community? For a while, I almost convinced myself to give in to just unlock the gate and let them do whatever they wanted. Then came the morning that broke me. My little birdhouse camera, something I'd built half for fun, half for security, caught Rick and his crew walking straight onto my patio with spray paint. They moved my chairs aside, measured, marked, and then painted giant red letters across my brick fire lane. No parking. On my land. My patio. The place where I drink coffee every morning. Watching that footage, hearing the rattle of the spray can, I felt like my property had been branded against my will. And for a moment, staring at those ugly orange letters, I thought maybe I should just let it go. Maybe fighting this was too big for me. Maybe they had authority after all. But then my neighbor Emma showed up, clutching her phone. "Jordan, I filmed the whole thing from my window," she said, breathless. Her video showed them crossing my property line plain as day. Side by side with my footage, it was undeniable. Trespass, vandalism, fraud. That was the moment something flipped inside me. If I didn't fight this, I'd be handing Linda my farm on a silver platter. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was ready to dig until I found the truth. I called County Code Enforcement. They told me HOA boards can request inspections, sure, but they cannot force entry without recorded easements. That word, easement, stuck with me. I drove down to the county recorder's office, hands shaking, and asked for every record tied to my property. The clerk brought out a fat folder, page after page of dry surveyor maps and signatures until my heart sank. In 2016, there really had been an easement across my land, a designated fire lane. Linda wasn't crazy. She was leaning on something real. But then, buried 20 pages deeper, I found it. A revised map stamped March 2018, signed by the county engineer. It vacated the easement, moved the fire lane to the far edge of the neighborhood, and permanently removed access rights from my property. There it was. Black ink, official stamps, government signatures. The smoking gun. Linda was fighting with authority that had been dead for 7 years. I spread those documents across my kitchen table like armor. The next day, I joined a conference call with Linda, the property manager, and Rebecca Thompson from the insurance company. Linda started strong reading from her leather portfolio about historical emergency access rights. I let her finish, then shared my screen. This is County Document AB 20, 2018, 47. I said, highlighting the vacation clause. Recorded March 15, 2018. It terminates all access rights on my property. Linda's face drained. She scrambled through her papers, muttering about bureaucratic madness, then stood up shouting that community safety couldn't be erased by paperwork. Rebecca didn't flinch. Insurance cannot endorse forced access without valid legal authority, she said firmly. Linda stormed out, slamming the door. I thought that might be the end. I was wrong. A few mornings later, I caught her back at my gate, crew in tow, master keys jangling. Final inspection is mandatory, she bellowed. Her voice was shaking with rage, but her hands were steady as she jammed those keys into my lockbox again, metal screeching against bolts. I filmed her, my pulse racing. This time it felt dangerous, like she'd tear the box off the wall if she could. Then, like an answer to a prayer, a county truck rolled up. Out stepped Officer Sarah Chen, clipboard in hand. She walked straight to the gate, examined the scratches, and asked Linda one question. Do you have current legal documentation to access this property? Linda fumbled with her portfolio, pulling out the old easement maps. I handed Officer Chen the 2018 vacation document. She read it carefully, nodded, then turned to Linda. Ma'am, the easement was vacated. You're trespassing. The sound of her pen scratching across a citation pad was the sweetest thing I've ever heard. 2 tickets, trespassing and tampering with private security. Linda stood frozen, clutching her useless keys, her crew stepping away from her like she carried a disease. The fallout was swift. A week later, at the HOA board meeting, the room was packed. Word had spread. Insurance had already suspended coverage because of her false claims. Rebecca from the insurance company joined by video, confirming that Linda's authority was based on easements that no longer existed. Officer Chen testified remotely about the citations. Even the HOA's own lawyer warned the board they faced liability if they kept backing Linda. When it was Linda's turn, she launched into a desperate speech about how community safety can't vanish because of bureaucratic paperwork. Her voice cracked, her hands shook. Neighbors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Then came the motion, a vote of no confidence. One by one, the board members raised their hands. 4-0. Linda abstained, staring at the table. Just like that, she was stripped of power. Replaced. Done. I walked out of that meeting with no applause, no victory parade, just relief. Back home, I stood on my cleaned patio looking at where those red spray paint scars had been scrubbed away. Linda's so-called master keys had opened every mailbox and pool gate in the community, but they couldn't unlock common sense or erase the law or override the simple truth that my land was mine. In the end, it wasn't her shouting or my fear that decided anything. It was the paper, the ink, the stamp that proved where her authority ended. Power isn't about volume or titles, it's about knowing your rights and standing your ground.